Up next is, this is also House Governmental Affairs on Wednesday morning, Senate Bill 80. This is the one that I hate the absolute most. I even hate it more than the cockroach, if that's even fathomable. This is Senator Gregory Miller's exit polling bill, which amounts to a censorship bill.
It is a censorship bill because it preemptively prohibits ordinary law-abiding Louisiana citizens from conducting lawful exit polls. And it restricts that activity to, quote, bona fide news organizations. You know, the ones that we've all come to know and trust so much, Danielle, the CNNs of the world. Yeah. So if you don't work for CNN or some other legacy media organization, you can't conduct an exit poll at a voting precinct.
Unless Nancy says you can.
Unless Nancy approves it. Where in the Constitution is that distinction made? Nowhere in the Constitution. You know how you solve the problem, assuming there is someone who's not doing it the right way or someone who's causing a disruption? You call law enforcement, you handle it there. But this is an unconstitutional prior restraint on speech and on freedom of association. Flagrantly illegal. You can't do it. The Constitution makes no distinction, and our legislature should not be making a distinction about who gets to exercise free speech and who doesn't. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us once again on the State of Freedom.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the State of Freedom. It's early Tuesday morning, and we have a jam-packed schedule. It seems like the legislature loves to just stack things up all at one time. This week's time is around 9 o'clock, the morning hours anyway, on Wednesday. So we need as many of you down at the Capitol as possible, prepared to testify, prepared to put in red and green cards. And there's no shortage of topics that we're going to be covering, that the legislature is going to be covering this week, from transparency to censorship to carbon capture, ethics, and the list goes on and on, parental rights. So we have a jam-packed episode for you this morning, and we are going to try and do it in record speed so that Chris can get to the Capitol to testify against one gnarly bill. So in particular, which we will get to. All right, let me start out with the scripture of the day. It's Psalm chapter 134. It's the whole chapter, but don't sweat it. It's only 3 verses. Okay, here we go. It says, "All his loving priests who serve and sing, come and sing your song of blessing to God. Come and stand before him in the house of God throughout the night watch, lifting up your hands in holy worship. Come and bless the Lord. May the Lord whom you worship, the mighty maker of heaven and earth, bless you from Zion's glory." And I believe this is another aspect of service to the Lord that's going to be increasingly important as we move forward, and that's worshiping through the night. You know, fasting is an act of service that draws us closer to the Lord by depriving ourselves of food and bringing our body and soul into submission, by not letting our stomachs and minds rule us, but instead choosing to dedicate that time and energy to seeking the Lord. The night watch worship is similar to fasting, but instead of food, we forego sleep in order to ensure that the Lord is blessed and honored even as the rest of the world is sleeping. So, you know, when David recovered the Ark of the Covenant, he established a tent, David's tent, in it for which the priests were to serve the Lord 24/7 with prayers, worship, and sacrifice. And notably, his son Solomon inherited the greatest time of peace and prosperity, perhaps in all of human history, since the Garden of Eden. And I'm convinced that there's a direct connection between bringing a sacrifice of praise, truly sacrificial, sacrificing sleep in the night hours and around the clock. I'm convinced that that is a key to blessing the next generation with peace and prosperity.
Yeah. And while we do all of that, Danielle, it is equally important that we always keep in mind why we're doing it. T.S. Eliot said that, the last temptation and the greatest treason is to do the right thing for the wrong reason. God looks at our motives as well. So if we're fasting, praying, and all of the things that are objectively good, we don't want to sully or contaminate those actions by having a diluted motive. We always want to make sure that we're doing the right things for the right reasons. Because even the exercise of religious diligence can become an exercise in pride and ego. And it's very, very subtle. And so we have to remember to do things in humility and always be purifying our motives for why we are doing them. Not for ourselves. We're doing them to glorify and advance the kingdom of God. And that is where the real blessing comes.
Amen, Chris. That's so true. I think it's so easy to get caught up in kind of that religious spirit where it's easier to be disciplined and not have to have too much heart into it rather than it is to actually spend the time and unpack why we're doing what we're doing.
Exactly. I mean, you look at the Pharisees. I mean, the Pharisees did everything so punctiliously. They followed all the rules. They did all the fasts. They did all the rituals. And yet Jesus called them a brood of vipers. On the outside, you look good, but inside, your heart is corrupt. So that's because of their
Yeah,
motives and their attitude. So
it's
let's
true.
check our motives.
All right, check our motives. Well, that's a good word for us getting into some salty things today. Why don't we start, Chris?
I'll say.
I'll mention what's going to be this afternoon first, which is House floor debate and Senate floor debate. The first thing up on my list is House Bill 304 by Representative Robbie Carter. And this is his bill related to CCS expropriation that would put the hearing venue, I believe, in local government's hands rather than in at the whim of whatever other I don't know,
Exactly.
whatever other cause, right?
Even though when it comes to injection wells, that's what we're talking about under his bill, you are required under his bill to bring any action to expropriate any piece of property in the parish where the property owner are located. And that is, I think, a matter of basic fairness. And so it's a good bill. It doesn't address fundamentally the issue of carbon capture sequestration, but it certainly addresses a very important venue question, which is that the property owner should not be inconvenienced when it comes to those type of proceedings, and that's why they should be held on the property where he's located. And
And
this better pass.
this better pass, Chris. I listened to some of the debate on this in House Natural Resources last week, I believe, or it may have been the week before. And one of the objections was that this is already the case.
Not
Now,
necessarily, yeah, that's true, but not necessarily. There, that it is venue is proper in the parish where the immovable property is located, but venue under circumstances can also be proper in the place where either the property owner may live because the property may not be in the parish where he is living, or it can also potentially be in the parish where the person bringing the expropriation action is domiciled. So there are multiple venue provisions. So, but this would that the action be brought in the parish where the property is located.
beautiful. One last question on that. Without this bill, could it also be possible that it could be where the contract is signed? Like, for instance, if the company has its location in Baton Rouge, or if the government is signing part of the contract, that way, I'm just saying, does this force it generally out of Baton Rouge?
Yes, but under normal circumstances, a possible venue certainly would be where the contract is executed. Yes, so that's why this bill is important.
Great. We see the extraordinary bent toward corruption outside of this bill.
Yeah, I would say so.
All right. Also on carbon capture, House Bill 601. This is an important one by Representative Brett Guyman, and it is about CO2 sequestration's eminent domain rules.
Yes, and this deals with carbon capture sequestration pipelines. Very good bill that Representative Guyman brought a second time because it failed the first time. We were able to flip 3 Republican votes the second time he brought it in House Natural Resources Committee. And this bill outlaws eminent domain for purposes of carbon capture sequestration pipelines. This is probably the most important carbon capture sequestration bill that remains, and very significant. So we're going to be following this very, very closely and urging every Republican to enthusiastically support this bill.
Yes, and I would like to think, Chris, that the first failure of this bill was a shot across the bow made in House Natural Resources. Maybe the shot heard round the house, Chris. that people would
Yeah.
understand that they need to get in line and follow the will of the people instead of the will of the special interest big industry that's been pressuring them.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that on the second vote on HB 601, uh, DeWitt, Kerner, and Jacob Landry switched their votes from no to yes, which enabled that bill to pass through committee. So I wanted to acknowledge them for that.
Absolutely. Thank you for hearing and responding. And we know that not all of our representatives did so.
No, but that was because of a lot of pressure on that bill 601 that
Yeah.
they switched their votes.
Yeah. Okay. Next up, House Bill 615, also set to be debated on the House floor today. Another one by Representative Guyman. This is his one that would regulate the solar industry in Louisiana.
Yeah, and it would confer significant authority on local jurisdictions to establish the parameters, Danielle, and regulate the development of solar energy, solar generation facilities. I don't believe in that enterprise to begin with, but this bill will allow local jurisdictions to have a lot of authority over its development and whether or not it is developed. And it protects private property in those jurisdictions. It's a good local autonomy bill as far as solar facility generation. So it's a good bill.
Yep. Okay, now moving to the Senate, Chris, for floor debate today is Senate Bill 226 by Senator Valerie Hodges. This is the bill that had a lot of difficulty, faced strong headwinds in committee, which is really antithetical to the Constitution. It's antithetical to state sovereignty. It's antithetical to everything that caused President Trump to be elected, protecting the people of the state of Louisiana, protecting the property of Louisiana from being sold to foreign adversaries, inhabited by foreign adversaries, or manipulated by foreign adversaries in the case of our voting systems. I believe, Chris, and you should know more about this than I do, that Senator Hodges is looking to get some of this salvaged. In some ways, I wonder if she may put it back, recalendar it today so that it could get heard a different day after, I don't know, maybe she spent the weekend working on it, but they decimated it in committee.
They decimated it in committee. They took out the codification of President Trump's executive order that would make sure that our foreign adversaries have no influence over our election system at all. And that's a very broad statement because it does a lot of things within that rubric. But that was gutted in Gregory Miller's Senate Judiciary A, and also gutted in Senate Judiciary A was the provision in the bill that would allow expropriation of any property currently owned by a foreign adversary or someone connected to a foreign adversary if the property is located within 50 miles of a critical infrastructure facility, a military base or something along those lines. That was also gutted. It's quite shocking. And perhaps it shouldn't be that a Republican dominated committee, Senate Judiciary A, led by Greg Miller, would gut those provisions in that bill. It's extraordinary. And Nancy Landry made a couple of what we believe are flagrant misrepresentations in that hearing in order to get that bill killed, specifically with regard to elections. So the bill is limping into the Senate in current posture. But as you said, Danielle, Senator Hodges is trying to do something to resuscitate it. And there can be amendments put on there to put those provisions back in the bill. Hopefully, there's the will to do it. I know there's been a lot of fallout from the actions that occurred in Senate Jude A, and hopefully the legislators are hearing it. And hopefully there are some smart senators who understand how important this is.
Yeah, well, you and I and Katie and a number of other people who are very strong care very deeply about this issue of our elections not being manipulated and, frankly, our property not being purchased by foreign adversaries. All of this should be common sense. And it leads to the question, who owns these senators? And I guess we know that Nancy Landry owns them because she proved that. They voted that way. So we'll see. We'll see if the voice of the people is able to triumph in this case as well. I
Yeah,
pray that it is. We certainly are not going to be letting up the pressure. Chris, is there still a call to action on this? How else can we hammer these people?
I would call your state senator. Call your state senator because this will be going on the House floor. Danielle, when is this going for?
Senate floor. It's scheduled for today.
Okay, it's scheduled for today. So this morning, This morning, you can call 225-342-2040, 225-342-2040, and demand that your state senator uh, promote that is owned by a foreign adversary in Louisiana within 50 miles of a military base. Just tell them you want the original, say, we want the original SB 226 on the floor, the original, before it was
Yeah.
gutted in the committee.
And please take to social media as well, Facebook and Twitter. Follow, you can go and amplify the work that LACAG is putting out there. You can amplify the work that the State of Freedom is putting out there. There are a number of others who are very, very energized on this issue. So make your voice heard on social media so that your neighbors and friends and relatives also know that, our state Senate is up to some shenanigans and it needs to be rectified.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next up is Senate Bill 8, Chris. This is by Senator Jay Morris, and this relates to making it easier to hire and fire in the state.
Yeah, a lot of current employees in Louisiana, Danielle, are what's called classified civil servants, which makes them virtually untouchable. Very, very difficult to fire, very difficult to demote or discipline because they're
Some
protected.
of our elected officials behave that way, Chris.
Some of our elected officials behave that way, exactly. And so this bill would simply allow the state to reclassify a number of these employees from classified status to non classified so that there is more accountability among these employees. And that's what we need because, quite frankly, if there's no fear of ever being able to lose your job or be significantly disciplined, chances are you're not going to perform on the level that you would if you did have the possibility of discipline or firing. And so that's what Senator Morris is trying to do here.
Yeah. All
And
right.
by the way, it's a constitutional amendment. So if it passes, it will just go on the statewide ballot. And we're going to support that amendment when it gets there.
Definitely.
We've all had instances crop up where we could use the advice or skills of a trusted attorney. Whether you're looking at the implications of new laws for your business, signing a contract or a lease, looking to write a will or establish a trust, or even resolve a dispute with your credit card company, Legal Shield has got you covered. For over 50 years, Legal Shield has made it affordable and easy to access a dedicated lawyer. With the app, Legal Shield is like having a lawyer in your back pocket. For covered emergencies, Legal Shield is here for you 24/7, plans to fit any stage of life. The State of Freedom is proud to be teamed up with Legal Shield as clients and affiliates. To learn more or to sign up, visit the Shop Our Partners page on freedomstate.us or check out the link in the show notes. Thank you for supporting the State of Freedom.
Okay, now, Chris, what's up for today? There's only a couple things on the docket for today that we care about, perhaps even only one. In Senate Judiciary A, which is getting a reputation for itself right now, today at 9 in the Hankel Room will be Senator Jay Morris's SB 39 will be heard, and we are strongly against this bill. Do you want to talk about it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we have a serious over detention problem in Louisiana, Danielle. The Fifth Circuit has said so. The Department of Justice has said so. The Department of Corrections is routinely holding inmates weeks and months after they have served their time. You can't do that in a constitutional republic. You can't do that in a free society. And the Department of Corrections is responsible for properly calculating those out dates and making sure that when people's sentences are served and their dues are paid, that they are released. Well, in original form, Senator Morris's bill, SB 39, would have basically said even if these inmates are held over false imprisonment, that there's no responsibility on the state. The state is basically immunized from liability unless you go through all of these onerous hurdles in order to be able to get some kind of relief. So it really is a bad bill because it shields the state from accountability for a problem that they have created. So the suggestion I'm going to make when I testify this morning is that instead of making it harder for people who have been aggrieved, legitimately aggrieved, to seek recourse for that, why don't you just address the problem? Why don't you calculate the dates properly? DOC is responsible for this. The Public Safety and Corrections, they have a $1.2 billion annual budget or something along those lines. Certainly, you can calculate the dates properly and make sure that these prisoners are released when they're supposed to be released instead of immunizing the people responsible for it from liability. Now, I will say this, Danielle, because of concerns that we've and others have raised, the bill has been substantially amended, but it is still not good enough. And we're going to go in and testify against it and express the very concerns that I just expressed to you, because we are not about a Republican or a Democrat or partisan politics. We are about, as we've been from the very beginning, we are about the Constitution, we are about citizens, and we are about basic due process. And that's what we do. And so even though Senator Morris is a good senator, this is a bad bill, and we're going to continue to oppose it.
Chris, a couple of points on that. Number one, we have had success in getting nasty, ugly, wrong-headed bills transformed into exactly what they should have been in the first place, which is a solution to the problem. We did that with Senator Kirk Talbot's bill on firearms last year, if I recall. So I am hopeful that we are able to pull that off for this one as well, and maybe get DOC to do what it needs to do. Secondly, I'd just like to point out that since we've been following this supermajority Republican conservative legislature, since this new legislature came in in 20, when did they come in, Chris? 24? 24. January 2024, right? So since they've come in, they have proven to us that their version of tough on crime includes no counting for recidivism, no ability for rehabilitation. So I think one point you could reasonably make to Senator Morris is the direction of this Republican legislature is just life sentences for any crime committed.
Yeah, it's all punitive and no rehabilitation is what it comes down to. Everything is punitive because you know what? Punitive sells. And rehabilitation very often does not, unfortunately. But if you explain to people that the vast majority of people who are released from prison do repeat, they are recidivists. Maybe we need to have a renewed focus on rehabilitation, not only because it's good for society, because it makes us safer, but it also reduces the fiscal burden on the state and on the taxpayer. The longer an inmate is in prison, the more money we have to pay to keep them there. So everybody benefits from investing in true rehabilitation.
And if they want true economic development, if you want to drive more people to come back to this state, we should also, at the same time, with the same breath, be focusing on the people who live here. And that should include making their community safer, not necessarily by locking everybody up forever, but by making sure that the people who do get locked up because they committed some crime and they're there, rightfully, that when they come out, they're ready to be productive members of society.
No question about it, or else they're going right back in, and what have we accomplished?
Exactly. All right. I'll move us along because I know you got to get going here, Chris. But House Health and Welfare tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Like I said, 9 o'clock is the witching hour for these folks. House Bill 400 it's Emily Chenevire's parental rights bill, restoring for the first time since I don't know when, parental rights for a minor's consent to any kind of medical procedure.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that currently in Louisiana, a minor can receive all manner of medical procedures and services without the consent or knowledge of their parents or their guardians. And this is a bill that absolutely has to pass because that statutory authority has to return to the parents in situations like this. I mean, how do you exclude a guardian or a parent from participation in a decision like that? It's just extraordinary that it wouldn't be. So it's a good bill by Emily Chenevire. The reason why it was deferred originally last week, Danielle, is so that they could tweak the bill a bit and make sure that there are exceptions in situations where a child would be put in even greater danger if he disclosed or she disclosed to their guardian or parent what it is they intend to do, because there are times, unfortunately, when the parents or the guardians are the ones who have caused the harm are the ones who are doing the abuse. And it makes the situation even worse and endangers the child even more if they have to report to them in that situation. So I think that's why it was deferred. I think that's been cleaned up. But yeah, and we're going to be going forward and probably testifying on HB 400. It's an important bill.
It is an important bill. And you only say probably because there's,
Yeah,
I don't know,
exactly.
5 committees that are meeting at 9 o'clock tomorrow. House Natural Resources and Environment, also 9 o'clock tomorrow. That one will be, or it's scheduled to be in room 4. And this one is the first bill that we've got on our list here, Chris, is House Bill 608 by Representative Kim Coates and co-sponsored by Senator Valerie Hodges. This is her Atmospheric Protection Act, which would prohibit geoengineering and weather modification in the state. It's kind
Yes.
of like Senator Facey's bill, but you think this one may have some stronger teeth to it.
Yes. Florida has passed, and it's now been signed by the governor, I believe, a geoengineering bill that would prohibit all this poison being poured out of these airplanes into our atmosphere, which is very, very harmful to us. And so hopefully, Representative Coates' bill will get through. Senator Facey, as you said, has a bill, SB 46 as well. And we worked with him over the weekend and with people who actually drafted the Florida legislation to make his bill even stronger. But one of those two bills certainly needs to go through and be signed by the governor. This is a huge issue, Danielle, not just in Louisiana, but nationally. And people are starting to understand, and they're starting to understand that the narrative that, oh, this is just contrails, this is just natural exhaust coming out of the back of the airplanes, nothing to worry about, is total garbage and total nonsense. And people know what is going on with this. And that's why it's so important not only to prohibit this activity in Louisiana, but to make sure that there are strong penalties associated with the violation of the law.
And I'm so thankful we have RFK Jr. over at HHS. I feel like he is one of the people that's in the highest ranks of understanding this, and hopefully we'll see the gaslighting around this stop as well. People saying, like you said, oh, that's, this doesn't exist, because it's clear that it does exist.
It's clear that it does exist, but the prevailing legacy media narrative is that this is just all a big lie and it's a conspiracy theory. So, but it's not.
It's not. Right. In House Education tomorrow, which is Wednesday, 9:30 a.m. in room 1, Senator Miguez's SB 117. This would be getting the ultra processed foods out of our public schools.
Yeah, we strongly support this bill, and it is similar to Senator McMath's bill as well. But yeah, just getting out all the garbage, all of the dyes out of our food that our kids eat. I mean, we have an obesity epidemic. The chronic disease epidemic in Louisiana is extraordinary. We're at the very top of the list. And a lot of that comes down to what our kids are eating on a daily basis. You get the junk out of their diet and watch how quickly things improve.
Yeah, 100%. All right. I said Wednesday was a big day. Wednesday, 9:30, room 2, House Governmental Relations. There's a lot going on there tomorrow. First is House Bill 160 by Representative Kelly Dickerson, and this is her ethics complaints bill.
Very good bill, Danielle. We've been in communication with Representative Dickerson. This is a bill that would require anybody who files a complaint against another person with the state ethics board for violating some state ethics law or some campaign law to disclose their identity. We think it's very, very important as a matter of fundamental fairness and due process that if someone's going to file a complaint, that they have to disclose who they are. That seems very, very basic. The concern that we had that is now being addressed in HB 160 is to make sure that there is protection in the bill against retaliation against someone who files a meritorious complaint. You have a situation where a citizen knows something that's going on and an employee, and they file a complaint against a powerful public official, and they suffer reprisal and retaliation and that sort of thing. And it happens, and it very well will happen unless there is a whistleblower protection in the bill, a prohibition of retaliation. And that's what Senator Dickerson is doing with the bill now. And so hopefully that will be in place going forward. And hopefully we have a good bill that protects both the accused and the complainant when it comes to ethics complaints.
Yeah, and we'll be watching this one closely, Chris, because I believe Representative Danny McCormick brought something similar to this last year that got killed in that
Oh, and
committee. And I don't have any space in my life right now to tolerate legislators that want less transparency and that gaslight us into saying that we need less transparency.
yeah, and it was Chuck Owen's bill, and
Yeah.
it
Oh, Chuck Owen,
failed.
that's right.
Yeah, it's okay, and it failed in committee, Republican committee, but I think it's got good momentum this year, and hopefully it will pass.
Yeah, hopefully it'll pass. Maybe that shot heard around the House from House Natural Resources last week has these guys on full alert.
I certainly hope so, and I plan to testify on HB.
Chris, you need 5 of yourself for tomorrow alone.
Yeah, I wish I had what Padre Pio had, which is the gift of bilocation, but I haven't gotten that one yet.
No, you haven't. So if you are listening to this and you are able to get to Baton Rouge tomorrow, if any of these issues are important to you, even if you're not comfortable testifying, please get there and put in a red card, a green card. Your body being in that room staring at those legislators makes a huge, huge difference. All right,
No
Chris.
question about it.
Yeah. House Bill 405. This is by Democratic Representative Matthew Willard. We are strong supporters of this bill. It would require the Secretary of State to prepare and publish information about how she's implementing the changes that the legislature sends her to with regards to election law.
Tell us what's going on, Nancy. That's the bottom line. Tell us what's going on. Make sure we know every step of the process. If you can post broadly on X and all your social media platforms the date when a judicial vacancy is going to be filled and when an election is going to be held, then you can be equally transparent about the processes whereby you are attempting to procure a new voting system for the state of Louisiana so that we all have an opportunity to weigh in and express our opinions going forward. That is critically important. And Willard's bill will require her to make sure that she's transparent in these important processes.
And Chris, I can already hear her objection now. Well, we don't need this bill because I'm already the most transparent Secretary of State in the history of the world.
And we don't need any more oversight because I know what I'm doing, and
Yeah.
we are so transparent
Yeah.
already.
Help me protect you from your own ideas.
Yes, help me protect you from knowing anything about what I'm doing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I really applaud Representative Willard for bringing this bill. It is sorely needed in this atmosphere.
And Representative Willard, by the way, is a Democrat, which emphasizes even more that we are looking at what's in the best interest of citizens and not the party affiliation of who's bringing a bill.
That's right. Okay, next up, Chris, is House Bill 471 by Representative Edmonston. This one is a bill that she was bringing in response to the overwhelming outcry and anger and disdain for the 4 constitutional amendments, but especially proposed Constitutional Amendment 2 on March 29th. I know you were going to reach out to her and see if she was still planning to bring this, Chris. I don't know if you were able to get in touch with her this morning.
Yeah, I reached out to her and she said that because every constitutional amendment that's being brought now, including the functional equivalent of Constitutional Amendment 2, which Representative Emerson is bringing again, is dividing up object by object each amendment. And Representative Edmonston is not going to bring the bill, is not going to have the bill heard because of what she's seen in the changes in the way these amendments are currently being brought forward. She did say that if the time arises in the future when she needs to bring this forward, then she will do it. But that's just a decision that she made. My own personal view is that it nonetheless needs to be in law, even though they are abiding by it right now. That probably should be codified, but Representative Edmonston has decided to wait and see. But we're keeping a very close eye on this, and we're going to make the very same objections that we made before if they bring another monstrosity like Constitutional Amendment 2 in the way that it was brought.
Yeah, well, Representative Edmonston, I thank her for drafting this bill, and I would also say, I don't want her to be intimidated by the fact that they're saying the same garbage they say all the time. What's the favorite line, Chris, that you love to repeat of the legislators?
You are, this is a solution in search of a
That's
problem.
right. We just did that the one time. We promised never to do it again.
Of course, there's no problem in Louisiana, as if they've never heard of something called preemptive legislation. We see the train coming down the track, we see what's happening in other places. So, by God, God forbid we would pass something that would preemptively prohibit something that may become a real threat tomorrow. I'm not sure our legislators understand that concept,
Yeah, much less when it has already happened to us.
much less when there's already precedent for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I might give Representative Edmonston a call and encourage her to keep it on the docket anyway. Maybe others should do the same, because I appreciate that she wants to take, give people credit for changing their MO, but it doesn't mean that they won't do it again.
Yeah,
It definitely does not mean that they won't do it again.
that's true.
So, okay, Chris, here up next is this is also House Governmental Affairs on Wednesday morning, Senate Bill 80. This is the one that I hate the absolute most. I even hate it more than the cockroach, if that's even fathomable by our audience. This is Senator Gregory Miller's exit polling bill, which amounts to a censorship bill.
It is a censorship bill, because it preemptively prohibits ordinary law abiding Louisiana citizens from conducting lawful exit polls. And it restricts that activity to, quote, bona fide news organizations. You know, the ones that we've all come to know and trust
Yeah.
so much, Danielle, the
Mm-hmm.
CNNs of the world.
Yeah.
So if you don't work for CNN or some other legacy media organization, you can't conduct an exit poll at a voting precinct.
Unless Nancy
Wherein,
says you can.
unless Nancy approves it. Where in the Constitution is that distinction made? Nowhere in the Constitution. You know how you solve the problem, assuming there is someone who's not doing it the right way or someone who's causing a disruption? You call law enforcement, you handle it there. But this is an unconstitutional prior restraint on speech and on freedom of association. Flagrantly illegal. You can't do it. The Constitution makes no distinction, and our legislature should not be making a distinction about who gets to exercise free speech and who doesn't. And that's why this is such an obnoxious and horrible bill. And we have a call to action up on this. The House Governmental Affairs Committee has received a lot of communications already, and I encourage everyone to go to LACAG and do the call to action on SB 80. Some people say, Danielle, well, this is not really that big of a deal. You know why it's a big deal? It's a big deal because of the precedent that it sets. It sets a precedent whereby the government is able to determine who gets to exercise their core constitutional rights and who doesn't. And we don't seek the permission of the government for our constitutional rights. They exist to secure those rights, not make arbitrary distinction about who gets to exercise those rights. That's why SB 80 is an obnoxious piece of legislation.
So well said, Chris. And I'd just like to know, and maybe this is something people could put in their comments to the House and Governmental Affairs Committee. Why is Senator/Chairman Greg Miller carrying Nancy Landry's water? Because we have seen it now. We saw it with the way that they destroyed Senator Hodges' bill on Thursday. Is it Thursday? Wednesday, last Wednesday. And now this. I don't appreciate it. And both of these bills, this one is so negative and, as you said, unconstitutional. And Senator Hodges' bill, on the other hand, is patently a protection for the people.
Yeah, they have to show, the government has to show a compelling state interest in order to be able to abridge fundamental constitutional rights. They've shown no compelling state interest. You know what she said at the hearing? She said that there was some disruption up in in North Louisiana, where these 65 and 70-year-old ladies were conducting a very polite exit poll, not disrupting anything. You know what the problem was with Nancy? She didn't like what they were asking them
That's
about.
correct. That's correct.
It's not the nature of the activity, it's the nature of the subject matter that she objected to. And that is not a compelling state interest. Just because a Secretary of State does not like what someone's speech or what someone is saying or who they're maybe associating with. That's not a constitutional ground to restrict that speech. And our legislators have got to understand that. And it's got to be done this session, and this bill has to be killed.
And I'll remind our listeners one more time, but I'm not promising it will be the last time, that the biggest censorship organ of our entire state, our entire government, is the Secretary of State's office. They have time and time again censored the voice of the people with regard to any number of issues, namely the election, but also the vaccines. And I will not stand for it. I absolutely will not stand for it. So please go to LACAG.org and do the call to action on this so that we can make a very strong statement.
Yes. And Danielle, I am in possession of an email, and there probably are others, but I'm in possession of an email. And I know that a number of people who are in the business of doing election security and are concerned about free speech protections have it as well. And it's an email from the Louisiana Secretary of State when Kyle Ardoin was Secretary of State and Nancy Landry was his first in command, first assistant. And it's an email reporting speech to the Center for
CISA, Center for,
CISA, Center for
I don't
Internet
remember what it stands for.
Infrastructure Security Administration or
Yeah.
whatever. It's a federal agency that set up a speech censorship portal so that they could crush online speech about elections that they disagreed with. And our Secretary of State participated in that, made reports to CISA, which then was reported to the Department of Homeland Security and other federal agencies
And
in order to crush that speech.
If these people, if Kyle Ardoin and Nancy Landry were really for the people, they would have told the federal government to pound sand. And they did not. They said, oh, here's all the people you can come after in our state. You want any more? Do we get bonus points for more?
Yeah, the fact that a government agency, in this case the Secretary of State, would be engaged in a collusive effort to censor and suppress speech is obnoxious. It's a core violation. Not only do they not, the government again is supposed to be in the business of protecting speech, and especially the speech that you don't agree with. That's what it's all about, not censoring the speech that you simply disagree with, because it's disinformation or misinformation in your view. That is so dangerous.
Would that be a violation of their oaths of office, Chris?
Absolutely, it's a violation. The government has constitutionally prohibited from getting in the business. It's called the First Amendment. The government shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech. They cannot do that. And so, and if they're doing that, then it's flagrantly illegal and it's very, very serious. And this was the Secretary of State, or she was working in the administration of Kyle Ardoin when this occurred during the 2020 election cycle. So you're right. I'm not convinced at all that she has an appreciation for this fundamental constitutional right that citizens have. And SB 80 certainly reflects that she does not.
The secret to losing weight 2 times faster has gone viral. See the transformations hundreds of thousands of people are experiencing around the world with the Slender Eyes drops. These homeopathic drops are proven to control appetite, support thyroid function, help balance the body's pH, improve energy, boost mood, and increase metabolic rate. I've heard firsthand testimonials from droppers in their 20s to droppers in their 80s who say that the Slender Eyes drops have completely revolutionized their lives. Try the drops today to see the results for yourself. To learn more about the Slender Eyes drops or other incredible natural wellness and lifestyle products, email me at info@freedomstate.us and put drops in the subject line, or visit the Shop Our Partners page at freedomstate.us. We also have links to those in the show notes. Thank you for supporting the State of Freedom.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to move us here along so you can get to the Capitol. House Administration of Criminal Justice, also tomorrow morning, Wednesday at 10 in room 6. House Bill 426 is going to be heard then. That's by Democratic Representative Wilford Carter. And this one is related to bail and bail modifications.
Yes. And this bill simply codifies the constitutional Sixth Amendment protections, the presumption of innocence, and makes sure that the judge considers the presumption of innocence when someone is accused of a crime and they're being held on bail or on bond, that he's not been convicted of any crime just because he's been accused. And this would codify the fundamental requirement that the judge understand that and remember that in a way that when he sets bail, the purpose of bail is simply two things. The amount of bail is calculated based on two criteria: whether or not the accused is a current threat to an immediate threat to anybody, and B, whether or not he's a flight risk. And if those things don't exist or only exist only minimally, then the judge simply has to set bail in an amount that will assure his appearance in court. It can't be punitive, and he certainly can't proceed from the false assumption that he's been convicted of something, which he hasn't. It's an accusation, it's not a conviction. So I like this bill because it codifies certain core protections that anybody who's accused of a crime by the government should enjoy when it comes to the setting of bond.
Yeah, absolutely. And next up is a bill brought also by another Democratic representative, Representative Denise Marcel. It's House Bill 457. This is one I like a whole lot. It's related to solitary confinement. And we like this one, Chris, because we've seen so many people wrongfully imprisoned, but also people who are there that get thrown into solitary confinement because of the whims of the guards, not necessarily always because they've done something wrong. And even if it is that they've done something wrong, Representative Denise Marcel believes that they should be able to, at least in that circumstance, while they're sitting in a cell by themselves with no contact with any other human being, should be able to read educational materials. We've also asked her if she would include faith materials in this bill so that people could have access to a Bible, to the scriptures when they are in solitary confinement. What better way to rehabilitate people than giving the opportunity for them to pore over the scriptures in a dark time?
Yeah, pour over the scriptures. You know, a lot of people are in the process of pursuing GEDs, trade certificates, bettering themselves. They make a mistake, they go into solitary confinement. There's no reason to abort that entire process just because they're in solitary confinement. The ultimate goal, again, is to get them to a place where they can be productive members of society. And while solitary confinement is appropriate under certain circumstances, we fully agree with it. There should be an opportunity for them to try to maintain to some degree what it is they're pursuing in the jail. And certainly they should have access to religious materials and to the scripture.
Yeah, and that kind of time puts people in severe psychological distress. So having reading materials that are productive would help, I think, a great deal.
Yeah, and Representative Marcel's a Democrat. We agree with the bill and we support it.
Yep. Okay, last bill on the docket for tomorrow in Senate Transportation, 1 p.m., Room E. Senator Valerie Hodges is bringing an important bill, SB 216, it's around the bidding processes at DOTD or related to DOTD, the bidding process would discourage delays and incentivize early completion of road projects. I think the entirety of the state could stand up and cheer at this one. We thought the entirety of the state would stand up and cheer at her foreign adversaries bill, so I guess we could stand to be wrong.
Danielle, the entire state did stand up
You're right.
and cheer.
You're right.
The only people who were not standing up and cheering were Republicans on Senate Judiciary A, who couldn't bring themselves to do the will of the vast majority of citizens of Louisiana and protect our elections and protect our infrastructure from foreign adversaries.
Well
So
said.
the state, believe me, the state was behind that bill, and the state will be behind this bill as well, SB 216, which will create real incentives for the timely and efficient completion of state road projects and create disincentives when there are unnecessary delays. And I know that, Danielle, this has to be one of your favorite bills of the session.
It is, because the Berg Bridge is still not completed. If someone from DOTD is listening to that, I'd appreciate a phone call. I've heard that the Berg Bridge is now delayed until July. I don't know if that rumor is true. I have seen that the signal package, which they were allegedly waiting on, has been up. There's now blinking red lights. So what is the stinking delay? What is the delay? This is a community bridge. It's been ongoing for 4 years. We suffered through Hurricane Ida with no ability to cross that bridge. It's absolute disgrace. And I hope that DOTD has put some serious fire underneath the rear ends of the contractor. And I did talk to Senator Valerie Hodges' staff yesterday, Chris, about this bill. I mentioned that to you, asking that debarment be included in this. And for those who don't know, because Chris educated me on debarment a couple weeks ago, it's the idea that if you screw up so bad that it's just unbelievable, you don't get the opportunity to bid again. What Senator Valerie Hodges' staff told me was that they did discuss that with Joe Donahue, the Secretary of Transportation. He said that kind of provision already exists in statute. So I guess we need that statute to be dusted off and used, because I think probably, if I had to guess, Chris, and maybe this is just me, either DOTD staff has relatives that are contracting on some of these projects. I can't come up with a reasonable reason for debarment to not be in active use. And maybe we need some billboards about debarment just to remind the contractors while they're on their way to project. If you screw this up, you can never, ever bid again.
Absolutely. And as far as the Bird Bridge goes, Danielle, if I were in DOTD, I'd want to finish that, just because I would not want we the people Bayou community all over me on this. I really
right.
wouldn't. I don't want them on my bad side.
That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
I don't want to be on their bad side, I should say.
Yeah, 100%. So, Chris, thank you so much. I know you have to get to the Capitol. That rounds out what we're following through Wednesday. We will pick this conversation up Thursday morning at 8 a.m., bright and early. Hopefully the majority of things it seems like everything's jammed into Wednesday, but maybe Thursday will be a day that they do some serious debate on the floor, since they're jamming so much into the committees tomorrow. But
yeah,
that will remain to be seen.
And make sure that everybody shares and subscribes and shares the State of Freedom. We're spreading the voice of liberty. We have two loyalties: the Constitution and Louisiana citizens, and we are that voice. You're going to get the unvarnished, uncensored truth about what's going on in our government. We are loyal to you 100%, and that's it. And we don't make any apologies about that. And the broader the reach of the State of Freedom, the more informed, the more effective we're going to be, and ultimately the better government we're going to have. So that's what's at stake here. So make sure you share and subscribe the State of Freedom, and also share LACAG, Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group. Go on, become a monthly member, so that we can continue to level the playing field against a big, powerful special interest. We're in the situation that we're in now, Danielle, because of corrupt special interest lobbyists and politicians who have fallen in bed with them. They have to be exposed, they have to be defeated, and we have to return our government to the people. And we are in the process of doing that. And it's such a privilege to be able to do it. And it's certainly a privilege to be able to have such a good wing lady like you, Danielle.
Right back at you, Chris. Well, you have a great day. Keep in touch.
Love you.
All right. Love y'all. Bye. The State of Freedom is a listener-supported podcast. We're committed to pursuing the truth about policymaking, decisions, and situations in Louisiana and at the national level that stand to impact our freedoms.
Please become a monthly supporter of the State of Freedom at freedomstate.us as we continue to expand the voice of liberty across Louisiana and beyond.
Thanks for joining us today on the State of Freedom. Be sure and check out the show notes for this episode. You can always go there and find the calls to action and resources mentioned in the show, and you can find out more information about our advertisers there as well. If you want to learn more about us or support our work, visit freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org. We'll see you next time. God bless.